Okay, well, welcome everybody, and we're going to start by talking about clients' rights. And I'm going to pass this out to y'all. So if you could take one and pass her down. Alright, actually, no, I do need one copy from me too, so I can go follow along with you guys. Do we have enough for everybody?
We can try.
We're missing one? Okay,
Sure.
thanks. Alright, I'm going to actually have you turn to the very back of the packet, and what you're looking at here is, this is the client's rights information that actually comes straight from the Department of Developmental Services. And I'm going to touch upon these, and you'll see, because you'll read some of them and you'll think, what the heck? You have a right to wear your own clothes? That sounds pretty basic.
Cool.
We would hope so. We hope that you can wear your own clothes. But what you have to understand is that in terms of the field, a lot of people lived in institutions and moved from institutions into the community. So a lot of this has that institutional flavor. You don't have the last page?
No.
Maybe can you look on with Nicole?
That's okay.
Okay. So what you guys do every day is, honestly, is the most important thing in the lives of the people that we support. It's what you guys do. And to the extent that we can support people's individual rights is to the extent that we help give them a quality of life. So there's this sometimes this balance between choice and health and safety, right? And so if you go too far on the health and safety side, then you might be restricting people unnecessarily, or limiting their choices unnecessarily. If you go too much on the other side of just do whatever you want to do, that could put maybe the person at risk or in jeopardy or something that's harmful for them. So you have to kind of walk this interesting balance between health and safety and individual choice and freedom. All right. So again, a little bit of background about even maybe as recent as 20 years ago, when people would have a child who had a developmental disability, the professionals would say, "Oh, you ought to put that person in an institution. Don't worry about that person. Just we'll take care of them. You guys aren't equipped as parents to handle that. And, let us take your child and go and have other children and go on your way." And a lot of families disagreed with that interpretation or that way of viewing their family member. And so out of that came community services and the Lanterman Act in 1968. So before that, you had two options as a family member. You could say, okay, you can live at home with no services, nothing, or you can live in the institution. So those were the two choices that people had. And so now we've really come a long way, and there's still more to go, of course, and there's a lot of what we do now is educating through example. So when we're out in the community with our people, going to the supermarket, going to the bank, going to the pharmacy, cooking a meal, attending a community event, a concert, we're educating by example. And I'm sure that you've probably seen, maybe people have maybe a weird stare, or they're not used to that, but it's becoming more natural. And I know that for me, when I went through school, there was those kids over there, and we never hung out with them, we never saw them, we never talked to them. They didn't play on the same playground that we did, but it was like, oh yeah, there's that other building over there, and that's where those people are. And so it wasn't something that I was brought up with. It wasn't a natural part of my upbringing. But then as 20 years ago, as I started getting into this field, there was a process of learning. And now these are just people that I know, and I don't really find myself having the us and them mentality as much. Sometimes I can catch myself and I have to kind of do a mental check and go, wait a minute, that's not good thinking. That's not correct thinking. So what I would like for us to remember is that there's no us and them. It's just we, and we're all unique, and we're all unique individuals. We all have different needs. We all have different strengths, and so we're just simply here not to fix people, or necessarily even to change them, but to come alongside people and help them, have the kind of life that they want. And that's really what our mission is about, and that's really what our agency is about. Personal freedom. It's really about personal freedom. So, again, remember that balance between health and safety and individual choice. An example that I used at our other training was about Mary. And Mary wants to have a box of donuts every day. That's just her thing. And so she is going to hound you, and she is going to demand until we get that box of donuts for her. That's not a particularly healthy choice for Mary, is it? Right? So how would you guys deal with that? What would you say would be a good way to work through that issue with Mary? Because this is something that she wants to do. So does she have the freedom to do that?
Yeah. I would just explain to her the outcome that could happen from just and the consequences if she continued to do that.
Right. So some education, educating her, like
or maybe trying to get her not to eat all of them, but just maybe one, like just have one donut a day or something to limit how much she's eating, like quantity maybe. Just explain the.
Some people might just say, "Oh no, we're not gonna. No, can't do it. You can't have those donuts. Sorry." So what happens there is then Mary is going to start whining, "I want the donuts! I want the donuts!"
Sounds like me.
And then you're going to be like, "That's not appropriate, sorry." And then it's like, "I want the donuts!" And it gets louder, and then you're like, "No, we're not going to do that." And then she's grabbing you, and "I want the donuts!" And you're like, "No, you're not being safe." And then, boom, Mary slugs you in the back as you're walking away, and you're like, "Okay, let's go get the donuts." So that's what can happen in the power struggle, is you're getting into that power struggle with the person. So, and there's not always one right way or wrong way, because everybody is so unique. Everybody has their own communication style. And obviously that's kind of an extreme example. But what are the outcomes if Mary continues to eat that box of donuts every day? Obesity, diabetes, heart problems. There's a lot of lard in donuts. Hypertension, teeth. Lots of sugar in them. So Mary is focused on the instant gratification because they taste so good. You have to admit, who doesn't like donuts? I mean, they're delicious. Well, there are exceptions to every rule, but most of us really enjoy eating those. And so, she's not necessarily, she's a very concrete thinker, so she's not necessarily going to think, "Oh, this is really good, and so if I delay gratification here, then I actually feel better and I'm going to be healthier." So that may not be part of how Mary, relates to the world. So information and education can be part of it. There's other, behavioral things like Jessica mentioned, maybe, taking it down, so instead of getting a dozen donuts, maybe she can have 3 donuts, and then you're gradually working that down, so it's not every day, but, maybe it's every other day, so sort of fading that and doing things incrementally. That might be something you can do with her. But again, you don't want to be so, I guess, naive in the thinking about clients' rights, where it's like, well, you can just do whatever you want. I can't do whatever I want. When I get in my car, I have to wear my seatbelt, right? I can't just not do that, or I could, but then maybe I'll get a ticket, or there might be if I do it, if I'm in an accident, I'm going to get hurt. So we have all kinds of rules and restrictions in everything. So freedom doesn't mean you can do whatever you want to do. That's not what freedom is about. But there are certain parameters, and so you guys have to use discretion and judgment when you're working with people, because sometimes you might disagree with a choice too. The kind of the rule of thumb, as far as supporting people, is if it's not illegal, and if it doesn't hurt you, and it doesn't hurt anybody else, you can probably do it. It's probably going to be fine. Mm-hmm. So beyond that, that's where the discretion comes in. So food choices, maybe choices in relationships, dating, sexuality, drug use, things of, even prescription drugs. These are the kinds of things that can, kind of go from the freedom side over to the health and safety side. And you've got to balance that. And that's what the communication is for too, and that's what we're here for. Your supervisors and people here in the office, is we're here to help kind of work through, because it's a conversation, it's a dialogue that we have with people. Okay, so what are the client's rights? Whatever you and I as citizens have the right to do, the individuals that we support have the right to do. There's really no difference. Again, it's just because this person has a developmental disability, there's some cognitive disability going on there, then that's where our job to support that person and quality of life comes in. All right. So looking at this, I'm just going to go over this really quickly, but you have the right to keep your own things in a private place. And again, think about this in the context of institutions, group homes. But this is what is the current state of clients' rights from the department. You can see how far we've come. Mm-hmm. You can really see that. You have the right to have paper and stamps and envelopes. You have the right to say no to electric shock therapy. Yeah. You have the right to say no to anybody trying to change the way you act by hurting you, scaring you, or upsetting you. You have the right to say no to brain surgery. You have the right to choose how you want to spend your free time and who you spend it with. You have the right to services that help you live, work, and play in the most normal way possible. You have the right to keep and spend your own money on things that you want and keep and use your own things.
I have a question. What about guardianship?
Sure.
Like guardianship, because some people, if guardians they don't have control over their money or their medical, like brain surgery, like their medical, like so.
Great question. Thank you for that. Yes. The caveat to all of this is conservatorship. Guardian might have some say in those things, but conservatorship is where the court grants it's usually a parent, but a family member, the right to make decisions for that individual. So you might think of it as, if you have a minor child, as parents, you get to determine where your child goes and what they do, and so conservatorship gives the parent or the conservator basically the final say. So like for example, one of the people that you work with has a conservator. So even if she wants to do something, and if the conservator says no, we're not going to do that, then it is a no. Yeah. They have the legal right to make that decision. But outside of the conservatorship, the person has the right to choose where they live, or what medical treatment they get or don't get, and how they spend their money. And there's 7 different areas within conservatorship. So that's something to be aware of as well. If the conservator says, well, I'm the conservator, that doesn't necessarily mean you get to make all the decisions for that person. Right. If they have what's called a general conservatorship, then that is true. They make all of the decisions for the person, or they can.
Richard, what happens if the conservator is not making, healthy choices, right choices, safe choices, things like that? I mean, what happens? What comes in then?
Well,
who can step in and say, hey, wait a minute?
That's a great question too. I think we'll start to answer that question when we get into the abuse reporting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because if a conservator is making choices that are really to the detriment of the individual, either abusively or in neglect, and we'll talk about what those are in a little bit, there is a process and a reporting process to address that. So.
Then as we as staff should know the extent of, if we're working with somebody who does have a conservatorship, we should know the extent in which that conservatorship is.
That's
I would
correct.
think.
That's correct. And the other part of that is what's called limited conservatorship. So I mentioned there's 7
Right.
areas. So like, for example, the right to contract, that's what you buy or don't buy. Your medical, where you live, you know, if you can marry or not. These are all different areas that can be part of conservative. So there's general, which is all of it,
Yeah.
and then there's limited. So it might just be 1 thing, or it might be 3 things, or it might be 6 things, but it's limited.
So the client I work
So you
with,
need
is
to
it a
know.
general
Yes.
conservatorship? So she
Yes.
doesn't, okay.
Yep.
Just checking.
Yep.
Okay. I figured it was, but.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
Okay.
Okay, so again, rule of thumb: if it's legal, if it doesn't hurt anybody, it's okay to do, and then use your discretion in terms of health and safety of the individual. Okay. Any other comments or questions regarding clients' rights? One of the things too is that you guys have a great role in educating our folks too about what their rights are. Some of them don't actually know it, or maybe they know it in a certain way, but they don't understand how that translates into action in day-to-day life. So you guys have a great role in